right, this is going to be the video recording for lesson 1.4 for our force and motion unit. So go ahead and click on our home page. And so what you are going to see is that we are learning today how force can change the object's motion. And so we're kind of looking at how the strength of a force can change the velocity, which is how far something goes, how fast it goes. So we are going to look into that. And you will see our first activity is our warm up and amplify. So go ahead and get into activity 1. And you can see that we are looking at the difference between velocity and force. So you wanted to read this scenario. And so we needed to explain to Sherman why he might be confused. And so they're looking at the difference between force and velocity. And so force is kind of that pushing or pulling movement that gets an object moving. And the velocity has to do with how fast and how far it goes, what that movement is. So go ahead and do that, and then you're going to hand it in. The other thing is that usually if we met in person, we would have been doing a hands-on activity. And since we can't, there is this recording that Mr. Livingood did for us of the activity we would have done together in class. If you would like to do it, if you want to get the supplies to do this, you're more than welcome to. It has to do with what we saw last week with the toilet paper holder that kind of, I don't even know what it's called. You can see it there, that holds that toilet paper roll and it kind of can plunge back and forth. And so watch this video. I'm not going to play it because it won't pick up the sound, but it has to do with using this to shoot jar lids across the surface. And we're seeing, because this is going to be our strength of our force, 1, 2, or 3. 1 being the weakest and 3 being the strongest. And so we're going to see if the strength of the force, when we hit the jar, if that changes the velocity, which is how far that jar moves and how quickly it moves. And so watch that. And then you'll see there's activity 3 and amplify. So when you go into activity 3, there's going to be some questions. And so when you scroll down through activity 3, you're going to see that I actually filled some in because we were kind of talking as a group about it, because the first 2 questions have to do with variables. And so this might have been something that you forgot about, independent versus dependent variables. And so we talked about how what we're changing in each test is the amount of force, because we're either doing a level 2 or a level 3. So we're either doing a medium strength force or a strong strength. And so that changed. And then we are observing the velocity of the jar lid, which means how fast and how far it went. And we are keeping the same jar lid, same surface. Pretty much everything is the same. The only thing we're changing is the amount of force. And then you're going to go down here and you are going to answer these questions and then click hand in. The homework is something you're also going to do. So you will submit activities 1, 3, and 4. And so this has a quick little reading on friction. And friction kind of has to do with the surface. And we kind of talked a little bit about this already. So obviously we're going to have different results if we shoot a jar lid across hardwood floor or like a desk, like a hard surface, versus carpet. And obviously the thinner carpet versus thicker carpet, those all make a difference. But why? And so friction, we're looking into why hockey rinks are not carpeted. We know we play ice hockey on ice. So why do they play it on ice instead of on carpet? And so you're going to kind of read this quick little article. It's only 3 paragraphs and it kind of introduces some important information. And you'll see there are 2 questions over here to the side. The first one has to do with why an object slows down when it goes across carpet. And then this is kind of what I was just introducing, the idea of what's the difference between it sliding on carpet and a bare floor. What's the difference? Does one go faster, one go slower? Kind of talk about that. Then there is an exit ticket. You get 2 attempts on that exit ticket, so please take it until you get the answers right. There is one error that showed up earlier. I think I fixed it, but if there's one that you can't seem to figure out and you think it's right, but it's marking it wrong, that error still might be happening. But there's one question, like I said, that was doing some weird stuff. Hopefully that was fixed. And then I showed the notebook so that you could copy in the 2 key ideas from lesson 1.4. And so you can pause this to get those 2 important concepts. And so those important concepts were, and I'll present it here. So those 2 important concepts were that forces can vary in strength, obviously pushing and pulling. If I push something, it might go farther than if a 1-year-old baby pushed it. So forces can change, and then the strength of a force affects how the velocity of an object changes. If you push something hard, it's probably going to go farther than if you just barely touch it. And so those are our 2 important ideas. So hopefully you can get that into your notebook. And that's that for this lesson.